Manny, Sid, and Diego are currently living in a large valley surrounded by an enormously high ice wall on all sides. However, the trio subsequently discovers the ice wall is actually a dam that is barely holding a massive reservoir that could flood the valley to nearly a mile underwater if it fails. A vulture tells them that there is a boat at the other end of the valley that may save them all, but they only have 3 days to reach it or die. Shortly after, a huge chunk of ice breaks off from the top of the dam, initiating their immediate evacuation. Meanwhile, one of the glacier fragments that fell earlier actually contains 2 sea reptiles from the Mesozoic era, Cretaceous, a Symbospondylus and Maelstrom, a Plesiosauridia which later freeze themselves and devours a turtle named Stu. When Manny is briefly separated from them, Diego and Sid encounter 2 mischievous opossums named Crash and Eddie who drive them nuts by playing whack-a-mole with them. Manny is still worried about being the last mammoth alive and his family, who had been killed by humans, but is surprised when he encounters Ellie, a female woolly mammoth who believes she is an opossum and Crash and Eddie's adoptive sister. Sid invites her to tag along with the group to escape the flood, and she brings her brothers. After a dangerous encounter with Cretaceous and Maelstrom while crossing a pond, Sid prompts Diego to encourage him to admit and face his fears. Diego insists that fear is for prey, so Sid points out that Diego is behaving as if he is the water's prey. They discover an area which Ellie recalls as the place where she was adopted. She finally realizes she is a mammoth and also expresses her suspicions about how different she was from other opossums. Despite this bonding moment with Manny, she distances herself from him when he suggests saving their species. Ellie and Manny ultimately reconcile when they must cooperate to save the group when the ground cracks under their feet. Sid is kidnapped by a tribe of mini sloths who believe Sid to be a god. Sid lights a fire for them, and believes that he has finally found respect, but they plan to sacrifice him by tossing him into a volcano. Sid narrowly escapes. The next morning, Sid tells the others about his experience but none are convinced. After being harassed by vultures, the group finds the boat behind a field of hot geysers, which separates Manny, Sid and Diego from Ellie and her brothers when they argue about which way is safest to go through. Just as the group bypasses the geysers, the ice dam subsequently fails, unleashing a devastating flood upon the valley. Manny is forced to go back to save Ellie after the latter gets trapped inside a cave. Cretaceous and Maelstrom later ambushes Manny underwater, but he manages to kill the 2 by tricking them to dislodge a boulder, allowing Manny to save Ellie from drowning at the same time. He and Ellie reunites with the others atop a boulder, but their joy is short-lived as the water is still rising. Meanwhile, Scrat climbs the adjacent glacial wall beside them and inadvertently creates a long crack when he punctures the ice with his acorn. The crack then widens into a gigantic fissure which splits opens the wall and drains the floodwaters, but in the process, Scrat falls within the fissure and gets washed away. Shortly after, Sid encounters the mini sloth tribe once again. Their leader suggests that Sid joins them, but Diego replies that he is a vital part in their herd, which makes Sid happy. A group of mammoths later appear from the fissure, proving to everyone that mammoths aren't really extinct. Manny initially lets Ellie go with the mammoth herd, but after some reconsiderations, admits to her that he loves her and proposes to her while hanging on a tree like an opossum. The herd, alongside the opossum brothers, then proceeds to venture out of the valley through the fissure as the screen fades to white. The epilogue shows Scrat having a near-death experience after falling into the fissure. He enters a heaven full of acorns. Suddenly, he finds himself being sucked back, just as he is about to reach a gigantic acorn. Scrat then discovers that he has been resuscitated by Sid, which throws him into a fit of rage. The movie ends with Scrat viciously assaulting Sid for saving him.